probably in like 1979 or 1980. I remember having a babysitter over, and it was night. I remember the place I was living, it was completely dark inside, and we had a floor model TV, and I'm sitting Indian style about 6 inches from the TV, literally, right? And the babysitter, I'm gonna call her out. Her name's Jerry. She stayed friends with the family over the years and stuff, and I still see her out every now and then. Had a guy come over, you know, those teenage years, and as I was sitting in front of the TV, just sitting there at the gazing at the wonder of what was on it, the guy was making moves on her on the couch, like 4 feet behind me. And I wasn't really paying attention to him, man. I was just sitting here looking at the TV, eyes big, bright. I saw this great, big, huge, epic fantasy that was on the TV. And again, I was hooked. And all of a sudden, I heard him like talking. And he misnamed the planet that Superman was on at the beginning of the movie. And I just turn around and I'm like, Krypton. And this is why I remember when it was. Because the guy went, oh my God, I grew up on Superman, and the 6-year-old kid is, knowing more about it than I do. Kind of embarrassed him in front of this girl, and I got a chuckle out of it, and I was still mesmerized, right? And that movie that was on TV was Superman, the movie. You'll Believe a Man Can Fly, Richard Donner. And I looked it up on Wikipedia to try to see that date and stuff like that. And it actually said that the Superman, the movie, wasn't broadcast on TV till like 81 or 82, but it was talking about some extra footage in it. I correct them. This is why I'm saying you got to watch Wikipedia, because not only do I have that memory, I remember where I was living. I remember the trailer we were in, and I remember the guy saying I was 6. And that was the beginning of a whole separate genre from the comic book hobby that are the superhero movies and TV shows. And amazingly enough, all the years later, after really wanting to see this stuff and scraping by and making sure you got in front of the TV and hoping that movies would be released and done right and all this stuff and all these TV shows and cartoons and stuff when I was a kid that from the comic books, we have a plethora of CW shows and 10 years of Marvel movies. They've been around longer than that. And all this stuff that's out there and stuff. Yep, I don't really watch any of it today, which is bizarre. Not that, and I think that's what we're going to talk about. Just that blows people's minds that know that I'm into this hobby, that I don't watch this stuff, and I have all this stuff, right? The Superman movie with Christopher Reeve, I don't think the first 45 minutes of this movie has ever been topped. And that was followed by doing the sequel right where we had villains come in, right? We have our 3 Kryptonians that follow General Zod, Sarah Douglas, Terrence Stamp, the big guy, and all that stuff, right? Years later, this movie got called back and we got the Donner cut where they added scenes, rearranged the movie a little bit the way his vision was as close as they could with the footage. Probably the second movie I watched was the Batman movie from the 60s. The one where they put a lot of stuff in the script, like the helicopter and the boats and the motorcycles and stuff, so they would have all this stuff for the TV show. It would be budgeted from a movie and put in the campiness. And as fondly as this is remembered, it also almost killed the Batman comics, apparently, right? Years later, we would come back with a CBS movie called Return to the Batcave, which was funny. And actually, as strong as these movies started out, as strong as the movie companies probably thought that these movies were silly and all this stuff like that, we started getting like some sequels and some other movies made and stuff, right? And some of them were not that good, amazingly enough. We got the cult favorite, which I own, of course, Swamp Thing from John Carpenter. We got this awful spinoff, which, bless her heart, Helen Slater did as much as she could with Supergirl in the early 80s. And went on from there. You were like wanting the stuff. It was on TV. Wonder Woman, the TV show. Hulk, the TV show. Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, The Incredible Hulk, Fantastic Four, all had cartoons. And as you went through the decades and stuff, we finally got to the point where probably around the 90s, we got some serious stuff. There was always Superman cartoons and Super Friends, and I could just go on and on with a list and stuff. And basically, in the 90s, we had like the X-Men cartoon, the Tick cartoon, Big Guy and Rusty the Robot. There was a Silver Surfer cartoon that hardly anybody talks about. Just all sorts of the superhero stuff were coming out, and started getting more live TV shows. And, from there, Disney, everybody wanted a little piece of it because all of a sudden we came out with this great big huge, I'm not organized here. Uh, you know, there was always an audience for that, but we were very underground, if you get what I'm saying. This, I don't know any other word for it and stuff, right? And they didn't really back these comic book movies, and they didn't really understand the audience or the source material, and it was sort of real experimental. Sometimes you would get like the Punisher movie with Dolph Lundgren, which I liked, but nothing really happened in it. You had like bad 70s Doctor Strange. So I've seen some of the good and I've seen the bad, and I've seen the magic of when they get it right and you can't believe what you're seeing. Batman, Tim Burton's Batman is really the one where I think it rejuvenated and took it off and stuff, took off with it. Michael Keaton was announced as Batman, and I was one of them. Probably was like, what the hell are you doing making Michael Keaton Batman? And he made you a believer, and that's why I really don't comment too much when I hear about movies being cast and coming out and stuff, because he made us eat it and all this stuff, right? And that spawned some movies where people were trying to be Tim Burton. Richard Corman's Fantastic Four movie, which was never released. That was just made to keep the rights and stuff. It was very Tim Burton inspired. The Shadow movie probably flopped because it was trying to be a Tim Burton movie. You started seeing things that were derivative and trying to be something, didn't really have their own voice and stuff, right? And ironically, Blade came out. You had, superhero things ebbs and flows. There's been superhero movies off and on more since the 90s and stuff, right? You go all the way back to the 40s, you had Captain America, Batman, Captain Marvel serials and stuff, right? And all that stuff ended up having Disney make The Rocketeer by Dave Stevens in the early 80s. You know, a indie alternative comics ended up having Disney come up and make The Rocketeer, which is a solid movie, which was fantastic, right? So I've seen all this stuff, and I've seen bad adaptions and good adaptions and stuff, right? And the fact that I don't watch a lot of this stuff really kind of, like I said, blows my mind, blows other people's mind. There is an energy with the CW TV shows with about any other TV show. You know, we've had Constantine fail, which, you know, broke my heart. Supergirl got taken from CBS and put on CW to integrate with the Arrowverse, the Flashverse, Legends of Tomorrow and stuff. And there's an energy. I think the TV shows sometimes feel more like the comics than the movies, because I watched a video by Alex Ross where he was talking about there's an energy in the art of comic books where these guys have deadlines and they're working really fast and stuff, and that makes this intangible energy. And TV shows are a little bit more of the same. They're thrown together. But what I find with the TV shows is sometimes there's a lot of buildup and not a lot of payoff. You still see some cool stuff, by all means. You know, I saw Gorilla Grodd. I watched the Crisis on Earth X crossover, all 3 or 4 of those shows put together. I got to watch them all at once and stuff, and some of the stuff that excited me about them were the throwback to the Superman movie where Supergirl taps on the window and she looks at her Earth X self and is like, "General, would you care to step outside?" I'm like, so they call back, and there's more of a respect there, and there's an energy. So the shows are good. You get to see Deathstroke. Like I said, I saw Gorilla Grodd. I'm like, whoa, Reverse Flash. You know, they pull from the comic books when people who work in the comics kind of come in and have their hand in them, like Jeff Johns and Jeff Loeb and stuff, right? So they get it right. They get villains in there and stuff, which is a huge improvement from going back to Smallville that started on the CW, where it was villain of the week, monster of the week, kryptonite, turned everybody, gave them powers or into something. And I just kind of couldn't hang in there with Smallville. It wasn't the interpretation. I liked what they were doing, but it wasn't until years later when they brought in a 2-part Justice Society of America around 2009, 2010. And then a little bit later, I got to see the Legion of Superheroes, and then they had to bring in Booster Gold. I'm like, that son of a bitch is in everything that I start getting into. So we come up to like 2001 or something like that, right? And Sam Raimi comes out with Spider-Man, you know, special box edition and stuff, right? And it was one of those movies that I could not, again, I had that magic. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. You know, it had its flaws, but the energy was there. Sam Raimi had movement in it and got a lot of stuff right, and he got more right than wrong. And you saw Mary Jane and Flash Thompson. You had Peter in high school. It touched on all the bullet points of what made Peter Parker, and I was like, this is great. And around this time, I finally got to watch the first Blade movie. The first two Blade movies, I didn't go to the theater and watch them. And I'm like, Marvel could have something here. I remember thinking that between the Spider-Man and me seeing the Blade movies, I saw some potential. So 2008 comes along and there's Iron Man. And I see the trailer for it. And I'm like, yeah, I'll go check it out. After all these years of seeing these movies come out and stuff like that, I was just sort of like, okay, let's go check this out. Had low expectations but positive feelings. And I'm watching this. And I can't believe what I'm seeing, because if you're a comic book fan, you know what you're in. You can't believe what you're seeing. They did it. They had Tony Stark come out in the gray armor. When he came out reborn out of that cave wearing that armor and stuff, I'm sitting there like, this shouldn't be this good. And I can't believe what I'm seeing. Strangely enough, I don't own any of the Marvel movies, because what happened over the years is that this year we have Infinity War coming out. The 10 years of buildup of all these movies crossing over and things like that. So I'm going to go see it. I'm not excited about Black Panther. The Avenger movie, as much as it justified my collecting the hobby, I've told the story before. When Avengers came out, I saw it 3 times. Once by myself, once with comic book fans who were my friends, and once with some friends who don't read comic books. And at the end of the movie, one of my friends just turned and looked at me and said, is this what it's like reading comics? And I said, every month. So I got all sorts of positive things. They've had good movies and bad movies. I've had that magic with the Marvel movies, not so much what I'm seeing, even though Captain America was damn good. That's what I'm trying to say. A lot of them are, 90% of them are great movies. But I saw Dum Dum Dugan. It's what they put in the Easter eggs for the fans that blows my mind. We had a great Doctor Strange movie, which was strange. But going back to the Avengers, what I started finding out is that the rewatchability of some of these movies isn't there. The movies are repetitive. Avengers 1 and Avengers 2 are basically the same movie. Throw in some characters, replace the aliens with Ultron robots, same movie. Ant-Man, Iron Man, a little bit of Doctor Strange. There's a formula to these movies, and it's the same plot. They just get the aesthetics a little bit different stuff, right? And there's this fatigue that's built up from so much of it. All the TV shows. I've watched like 3 episodes of S.H.I.E.L.D. Some of them are just bad, honestly, I think. And there's people that like these movies, so it's not bashing them. This is about me having the fatigue and what I'm seeing. And then there's TV shows like Comic Book Men and stuff, right? And over the years, people have latched onto their own version of the superheroes and stuff, right? We had a Heroes TV show, which the first season was great, and we just watched the movie kind of deteriorate. That's one of the reasons I think I've kind of got starting to get out of the superhero movies for a while and stuff, and TV shows, because as sequels come along and spin-offs come along, they just kind of deteriorate. There's been very few movies where the sequel actually held up. X-Men 2, you know. I've been into this stuff. I've ordered, yeah, sorry about the cover there. The printer was messed up. I had to get my printer. But anyway, I ordered this probably like about over 15 years ago. These 2 people took the Superman Luthor for President story, made their own independent film. Then you went to their website and you had to print off the DVD cover, and this is how it came out. It was a corrupted file or something, right? They did this just to show what they could do. This was, you got it for free, non-profit. I've watched movies that came out of nowhere where the guy that does the Flaming Carrot just happened to be in a studio and everybody was wanting a superhero movie in the 90s. And he kind of did this on the fly. There was no script when he came out with Mystery Men. Fun movie, very 90s. It's very dated. But it has this energy and it's fun. And you could go back and forth at a respected genre, but that's not the kind of movie you want to go into, right? And then you have, with some of these Marvel movies and a few other movies and stuff, sometimes they mess up, and I feel like we either get an origin story retold again. The Amazing Spider-Man movies, the second set after Raimi and stuff, horrible. There's no need to retell those stories, and you're just wasting your time. And it kind of takes some of it out of it. I got a lot of heat for my reviews on those, which was fine, whatever. But you reach this point where you need villains and stuff, right? And I feel like the villain that's never been topped has been both, Jokers. This is Heath Ledger's Joker movie. God, so good. Yeah, The Dark Knight. That was so good. And you had Jack Nicholson's, right? We got to see the villains get developed and the acting was fantastic. And we had moments away from the hero where that's one of the problems with the Batman movies. People say the villain's still the show. Big deal. He has the best rogue gallery. And then you have offshoots of movies and stuff, right? There's more out there than you think. Hollywood Man is the story of George Reeves, this is a fantastic movie that played the story behind the man who played Superman on TV, right? And then you have movies that are films. This one harkens back to Superman the movie and stuff. Wonder Woman, arguably the best superhero movie to come out last year. But the problem is that it's not a problem, but the trick is that this isn't a movie. This is an actual film, and this is surrounded by so movies when it comes to like Suicide Squad, Superman versus Batman, things like that. Justice League, by the way, was not as bad as people said. I actually enjoyed that movie. Okay, so that's part of the problems. There's just so much clutter out there that the cream of the crop will rise. I kind of starting to compare the Superman movies from the superhero movies from the last few years to like comics in the 90s. There's just such an abundance of it and stuff like that. Only time will tell what'll rise to the top unless you're, a diehard fan of it. Then you have movies that step away so much from the source material, you're just sort of like, why did they even bother every now and then, right? One bad superhero movie can kill you, like The Spirit here, which was just, I use that to go to sleep. It's like ASMR, and stuff like that. And then the fandom of some of these movies and stuff, right? There's this big, huge, I guess they're an online fandom that if a Marvel movie comes out and it's not with Marvel Entertainment, it kind of kills it because they give it bad reviews and say it's a bad movie and they don't let it stand on its legs. Even if the movie has flaws, you're not honestly calling out the flaws. You want these movies to fail so the rights can go back to Marvel Entertainment. Okay, fine, but to me it's still sort of an entertainment, and when I see stuff and get around people like that, it kills me, right? The X-Men movies, right, by Bryan Singer, I've enjoyed 90% of them. I'm seeing characters I never thought I would see again. I remember watching the X-Men movie. That's what gets me when this stuff is all fresh and you're seeing it for the first time and you can't believe what you're seeing. There's this real feeling with them that you can't, it's a magic, but you can't after you start watching the movie a few times or you see the sequels and stuff, that magic disappears. That's nobody's fault, But the first time I saw Wolverine and Cyclops on screen, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was like, they did it, It's a very surreal feeling to see these characters from when you were a kid and animated. And good God, I saw an X-Men cartoon in the 80s, and I think I have it on VHS, where they gave Wolverine an Australian accent. You see what I'm saying? Just unreal stuff. And sometimes you have movies that like are dead on with the adaptation, okay? The Ultimate Cut of Watchmen, it's a masterpiece. They did exactly what they could do to make this comic book, the unfilmable comic book that shows everything a comic book can do storytelling-wise in that genre that can't be reproduced. They came damn close, right? The Crow. The Crow did exactly what the book set out to do, and very a personal story, and there's no need to remake this, but we had the bad sequels and stuff, right? We've had the cash grab form. Kind of cheapens it a little bit. We've had faithful adaptations again. Sin City, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. They took actual panels and dialogue, and he made the unfilmable comic book with Robert Rodriguez. Then we had a so-so sequel. And then you have, like I said, going back to the Hollywood and stuff, you have movies like Unbreakable, where it's inspired by comic books. Just like Hollywoodland and stuff, it doesn't touch on it. And I'm saying and a whole lot of stuff. I got a lot of movies here. But then it's like there's these movies that, one of the things that really gets me is that there can be a really good comic book adaptation of a comic book you never heard or you never knew was really comic book inspired stuff. And I doubt I doubt the general populace of moviegoers, realize how good Dredd is. We had the 90s Dredd, which with Sylvester Stallone, that in no doubt in my mind hurt this fantastic Dredd, the movie. I think the freaking, I don't know, man, the horrendous, I don't even know what to say, man. The stink of the first movie attached itself to this, and it was not deserved. This was a fantastic movie, and it is a crime against nature that there is not a sequel to it. A movie that should be celebrated in my eyes, two of them that people probably don't even realize are comic movies, is Harvey Pekar, his story for American Splendor, and Ghost World here, right? Great stuff. And then you have movies like Super, which was an indie movie, which in my opinion sort of didn't have the flash, and it felt more like it was in the real world more than Kick-Ass did and things like that. Sometimes you find these indie movies that are a little bit more, and it kind of takes the oomph out of the other movie. You know what I'm saying? There's just such a glut there and stuff, right? And some of my favorite ones that kind of flopped again was like a Scott Pilgrim. Fantastic movie. I hope this gets a cult following, but sometimes these movies that flop are the best ones, in my opinion. I don't get it, you know. Um, oh man, this is such a good movie and stuff. I was watching this and I was like, I'm not the audience for this, but this is epic. So there's just so much good stuff out there, and there's a clutter, but it takes a lot of time to go through the clutter, and you get tired of mediocrity. I get tired of not having enough villains. I don't want to see superheroes fight for heroes again. It's the repetitiveness of it, you know. There's room for all the stuff, but they're starting to get like repetitive. And also, I've been watching superhero movies and TV shows and stuff since I was 6 years old. You know, we're going back to the late 70s, you know. I've scrambled around for the old cartoons. I've scrambled around for VHS tapes that were getting passed around of the old serials and 60s TV shows that Filmation was making of the Teen Titans and stuff, right? So I think there's like a little bit more fun and build up when this stuff wasn't accessible, you know. And then you get that magic when you see movies you never thought you would see, like the straight-to-DVD Turok Son of Stone cartoon, which is just so freaking underrated. I'm watching this, I'm like, they did it, you know, and they did it right. This has cavemen. It looks like they're inspired by Frank Frazetta. This is just so fantastic. They brought in actual Native Americans from the tribe that Turok could be to get accuracy in animation of bows, the aesthetics, everything he uses, right? Then you have Guillermo del Toro doing Mike Mignola's Hellboy. When you're watching this, you can't believe you're seeing Abe Sapien. That Ron Perlman is Hellboy, you know. Then you have a second one, which is a little bit weaker, but I got to see Elric, you know, Michael Moorcock's Elric in this. This is what he's doing. There's an elemental and an albino with a sword who's royalty. It's Elric in there, you know, things like that. So, underappreciated movies, uncelebrated movies, movies that get derivative, movies that are in such a glut. It's kind of, some of them are just made bad. They go political and get away from what the book was, V for Vendetta. Movies that just people bash because they're not by Marvel Entertainment, even though Deadpool was like a hit. TV shows that I've grown up on. So maybe it's just, you know, a fatigue. And I'm really amazed that there's a lot of these movies I'm not really excited about. And I'm going to be seeing Infinity War, not losing sleep over this because it's been 10 years coming. So I hope, you know, the momentum comes up. But what is happening, the movies I want to end up, I'm really getting excited about all of a sudden, are the monster movies that's coming out. I can't think of the freaking Japanese word for giant monsters right now. I was so ready. But anyway, like, I've been a King Kong fan for years, right? And we're starting to get like Pacific Rim, King Kong, Godzilla, the giant monster movies. They're making this universe for them. They're building up all these movies that, you know, are going to cross over and attach and stuff, right? Using a Marvel formula, you know, is what they're doing. I have my movies where, you know, it's the original story. It's been told enough, and now King Kong is moving forward with a fantastic movie. Godzilla is moving forward. I'm even excited about a movie based on a video game that was from the 80s, and everybody knows what it is, but, you know, Rage. Oh, my God. Rage, that has Rock in it. And we're going to have our giant, you know, albino ape, which I get why they made him albino. I'm going to get to see my gigantic monster creature from the Black Lagoon. You know, I'm going to see giant monster movies. They're coming, man. And I kind of think that's the way it's going to kind of steer a little bit. I think this fatigue is kind of spreading. And I really am really happy when I see people who are still excited about all these superhero movies and stuff like that. I'm like, you go and stuff, right? But yeah, I just figured that made an interesting topic for a video. So thumbs up, subscribe, and in the comments, tell me about your favorite movies. I don't usually do this to get, you know, but I really want to hear it. Are you having fatigue? Are you still excited? Are you excited about any upcoming movies and stuff? I think this is something I'm just kind of really interested in, some thoughts and stuff, right? Not losing sleep in this. I'm not bashing any movies. There's some good crap coming out. We got some good DC movies that I think are going to really surprise some people, and then we're going to have some superhero movies that it's going to be exactly what people thought. I'm excited about seeing Black Adam adapted to screen. That'll be interesting. So I mean, there's still some stuff I'm excited for, but it just blows my mind that we have all the TV shows, all the movies, stuff that when I was collecting you into as a kid and stuff, you never thought you would see. So that'll be interesting. And I'm not even mad about the Green Lantern movie that Ryan Reynolds made a few years ago. Could have been more. And to top it off, I think the biggest thing with all these movies that bother me is it's a lot of wasted characters. They're Easter eggs. Suicide Squad had Katana in it and some other characters that you read the books and they can be fantastic stories in movies that would surprise people and make them fans. We don't have enough villains in these movies and stuff. I'm tired of seeing the origins and retelling of the origins and stuff. Let's see some freaking villains rise up and stuff for real. They're out there. But there's very few of them that are out and out bad guy versus good guy, and watch the heroes struggle and go through hell and stuff like that. Which is probably why I like the X-Men movies. So. All right, guys, I could go on and on about this. Unscripted, thumbs up, leave the comments, go ahead and sub, share the video and stuff. And I'd really like to see if there's a discussion here for some of this later.